Hi, this is Reverend Pat Jackson from Interwoven Congregations, and I want to welcome you to this recording of the Interwoven Congregations Roundtable that we held in May with leaders from the NAACP. We welcome folks from around the country, shared a word about Interwoven, and then entered into this dialogue about the NAACP, a bit of its history, the work it's doing today in Virginia for racial justice, and then how congregations, no matter where you're located, can share in this work for racial justice. We had some Q&A and then stopped the recording so we could go into the peer exchange. It's a regular feature of our roundtables where congregations can share what's going well in their work for racial justice and where they might be stuck or perhaps just in need of some new ideas. I want to welcome you now into our roundtable with the NAACP. We're really grateful to have two special people with us this evening, Reverend Dr. Delicia Davis and Reverend Dr. Janetta Lee. We're really grateful to have both of them as a part of our program this evening. Reverend Dr. Delicia Davis is a native of the DMV, of the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, who has blended ministry and public service in a remarkable way. She has been pastoring for 28 years in the United Methodist Church and engaged not only in her home congregation of Callaway United Methodist Church in Arlington, but also serving now as president of the Arlington chapter of the NAACP. She's also a author and a certified life coach and has a tremendous range of experiences that she brings together with her work. Reverend Dr. Janetta Lee is an associate minister at St. Paul's Baptist Church in Henrico, Virginia. Beyond the walls of the church, Dr. Lee is a passionate advocate for education, community, empowerment, and social justice. She volunteers her time and expertise at the St. Paul Community Foundation in Richmond. And she's an active member of the Richmond alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. In addition to being a lifetime member of the NAACP, she's also a life member of the Virginia State University Alumni Association. She currently serves as chair of the Religious Affairs and Freedom Fund Committee for the Virginia State Conference. So with that, I'm just really delighted to welcome both Reverend Dr. Davis and Reverend Dr. Lee to our program, and want to turn the mic over to the two of them with a starting question. And Dr. Davis, I can pull your slide up as well if that's appropriate. I'll invite you to cue me, but we'll invite Dr. Davis and Dr. Lee to perhaps say just an added word of introduction and then take us off as we focus on the role of the NAACP in working for racial justice today, and then letting us know what can we do as congregations in partnership. Dr. Davis and Dr. Lee, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Well, I'll start off tonight by saying thank you so much to you, Reverend Pat Jackson, for having me and my soror, Reverend Dr. Lee, to be a part of this program this evening. It is an honor to be able to share with so very many people this evening about the NAACP and the work that congregations can do to support the NAACP, and even beyond that, how we can continue as fellow Christians and congregations to make our world a better place, because that's the reason God called us, and that's the reason that we do the things that we do. So I'm grateful to be here. I'll yield to Reverend Lee for her to give introductions, and then I am prepared to share about the history of the NAACP.
Good evening. I too am delighted and honored to be with you tonight. I want to say thank you to my soror, Dr. Davis, for asking me to come alongside and join her in this effort, and for introducing me to Reverend Pat Jackson. We actually met face to face several weeks ago when he was in Virginia, and enjoyed fellowship, and grateful for the opportunity to just spend a few moments with you, to share and talk about not just the organization, but the work that she and I do, and what we're passionate about, in terms of making the lives of Black Americans and other persons of color better, and hopefully have an opportunity to engage with you, not just today, but prayerfully in the days, weeks, and years to come, as we share ways that you individually and your congregations can come alongside us and join us in this fight for racial justice and equality for all.
All right. So I'll share just a brief history of the NAACP and the role of congregations in its founding. Many of the historic African American organizations, especially those who were designed for the purpose of civil rights, were started within faith communities. They have never been limited to simply African Americans, but were started in community and congregations. So the NAACP was founded in 1909 during a time of racial terror and systemic, injustice in the U.S. His origins were deeply rooted in multiracial, interfaith, and justice-seeking, sparked by conscience and courage. The catalyst for the founding was in 1908, the race riot in Springfield, Illinois, the hometown of Abraham Lincoln. And during the violent outbreak, white mobs burned Black homes and businesses, and several Black residents were lynched or murdered. And brutality and injustice shook the nation, and that was people of all different faiths and ethnicities, races, all together, and people who just believed that such a horror was not something that should happen. At all, or a lot of people believed it should happen in the South, not in the North, according to history books. The founders were known as a coalition of conscience. So, in response, it was a group of both Black and white activists. Many of them were clergy, journalists, and reformers, came together to form the organization dedicated to securing civil and human rights of African Americans. So, founding members included W.E.B. Du Bois, who was Harvard educated sociologist and fierce advocate for civil rights. The only African American around that was among the original founders. Ida B. Wells Barnett, a journalist, educator, and anti-lynching crusader. Mary White Ovington, who was a settlement worker and journalist. William English Walling, Southern-born socialist and reformer. Dr. Henry Moskowitz, a Jewish civil rights activist. And Oswald Garrison Villard, the editor of the New York Evening Post, and grandson of William Lloyd Garrison. These men and women issued a call for a national meeting on February 12th, the centennial of Lincoln's birth. And that meeting led to the formation of what we now know as the NAACP. But what's key here is that from its inceptions, congregations, particularly Black churches, were the backbone of the movement. Meetings for the NAACP and what we also know as the SCLC as well, were held in spaces and sanctuaries that were dedicated to African American churches. So pastors opened their pulpits, congregants provided financial support, and even church basements became organizing hubs. The churches offered more than just spiritual guidance, but they were also safe spaces for education, for resistance, and for political organizing. And many of the NAACP leaders in the very beginning were clergy, including Reverend William Brooks, who served as a key voice in the nation's early structure. The theological conviction that faith must act in justice helped give the NAACP its moral authority. And sermons often echoed the mission of the NAACP, which is challenging racism, demanding dignity, and proclaiming the sacred worth of all people. In its early years, the NAACP focused on the legal and legislative action, public awareness campaigns, and grassroots advocacy. And so some of the key early battles included the anti-lynching campaigns, Gwen versus the United States, Buchanan and Warley, and the Crisis magazine, which was founded by W.E.B. Du Bois, and ultimately became a powerful voice for civil rights, culture, and intellect in the African American community. And so the NAACP has never been known as just a political organization. In fact, we call it a moral movement infused with the courage of the Black church, the activism of social reformers, and the vision of a just, equal America. And so from the pews to the streets, people of faith help lay the foundation for a legacy that continues to shape the fight for civil rights and social justice even today. And the NAACP remains a witness to the truth of that justice when pursued with unity and conviction that it can literally bend the arc of history. And so tonight, we just come to share that the church was a very integral part of the founding of the NAACP and has continued to be an integral part of every facet of the civil rights struggle, which we understand is continuing even today, if not even more so in 2025. I yield now to Dr. Lee.
I want to just add in at this juncture a little bit of history about the Virginia NAACP. The national organization, of course, you've heard, was founded in 1909. The Virginia NAACP in 1935, the political and social system in Virginia was basically that which in South Africa is known as apartheid, a word best understood by the pronunciation by law is rooted in the soil of colonial Virginia and chattel slavery like a creeping vine. The vine was consumed in the fires of the Civil War, and to prevent its return, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were added to the Constitution. The roots, however, did not die. Into the Constitution of Virginia, 1902, it was written, "White and colored children shall not be taught in the same schools." And that document denied the right to vote to all who, 6 months in advance of an election, had failed to pay the poll tax for each of the 3 preceding years. And it permitted to be registered to vote only those whom the registrar might enroll as a matter of course, and those who, in his presence and without aid, suggestion, or memorandum, had written application to the registrar, stating therein his name, age, date, place of birth, residence, and occupation at the time, and for 2 years next preceding, and whether he has previously voted, and if so, the state, county, and precinct in which he last voted. Separate became demeaning reality. Equal was always a cruel hoax. Discrimination against Negroes in every aspect of the political, economic, and social structures was the way things were from birth to burial. There was but scant participation by Blacks in the electoral process, except as a janitor or as a home or farm demonstration agent or as an official or employee in a colored school or in some other separate but unequal facility for Negroes. No Black person was employed by the state or government. They were not even included intermittently for jury service. These were facts of life which impelled the organization of the Virginia State Conference of Branches of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. The founders of the organization were Sadie Weish from Suffolk, Attorney Oliver W. Hill, Richmond, Jesse M. Tinsley, Richmond, Jewel S. Carrington, Halifax, Zenobia Gilpin, Richmond, J. Byron Hopkins, Richmond, Dr. Leon Ransom from the National Office, and Mrs. Spencer of Roanoke. The first organizing meeting was held in Roanoke, Virginia in 1935. In 1968, in a suit against the New County School Board, the Supreme Court held unconstitutional the freedom of choice plans which school boards had used to require Black children on an individual basis or other parents for them to apply for enrollment in a specified school attended by white children. The court plainly said that duty of school board was to come forward with a plan that promises realistically to work and promises realistically to work now. Nevertheless, conference-sponsored school desegregation cases continued on active court dockets until 1975. The potential for additional court challenges to the resegregation of public schools in Virginia is an issue we will have to address in the very near future. Disparity in education relates to economic conditions as well as resegregation of our school system during the race of our students and employees. In order to enhance the quality of education in the Commonwealth, we must make crucial decisions regarding the necessary corrective steps we must take. That's an excerpt from the actual history. And discussed it with the excuse of tar paper shacks for a high school. Black pupils in Prince Edward County, led by Barbara Johns, refused to attend classes until they had talked with an NAACP lawyer. Thus began the case of Dorothy Davis and others versus County School Board of Prince Edward, which, with cases from Kansas, South Carolina, and Delaware, impelled the Supreme Court on May 17, 1954, to hold in Brown versus Board of Education that, in the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place. More than 3 decades, excuse me, after Brown, we find the gap between Black and white income widening and a growing group of poor Americans being described by some as a permanent Black underclass. We are now confronting a national administration committed to turning back the clock by eliminating hard-fought gains in school desegregation and by opposing affirmative action, goals and timetables for correcting past discrimination in employment, and by resisting desegregation in higher education. Even though history seems to be repeating itself, the youth of the Virginia State Conference Youth and College Division remains a valuable and influential part of this organization. Since the early 1960s, when the Youth and College Division was reactivated, young NAACPers have led the way in civil disobedience. During this period, much of the activity centered around sit-ins, which were held in cities like Petersburg and Richmond. The State Youth and College Division continues to distinguish itself as one which is vocal on national, state, and local issues. And I will pause there, giving you some history about the forming of the Virginia NAACP issues that were present at its formation. And for those of you in Virginia and those of you who know something about Virginia history, which some are still prevalent to today.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. I appreciate that. And Dr. Delicia, also this look at the history of the NAACP and its founding. What can you talk to us about in terms of how the NAACP today, perhaps in Arlington County, and then the statewide, is continuing this work in today's climate for racial justice and healing?
Right, absolutely. I'd love to talk about the Arlington branch, branch 7047. For 2 years in a row, we received the Theismann Award, which is the highest award that a branch can receive because of our advocacy work. That is not because of me, that is because of hardworking committees all within our branch working cooperatively and advocating all year round. We truly have a dedicated group of volunteers that work tirelessly. We work specifically in areas of housing, education, political redress. I'm sorry, legal redress and political action. The housing, there's a big thing in Arlington now about the missing middle because there is housing that is there for those who are wealthy. Arlington is one of the wealthiest counties that you could live in. And so there's housing for the wealthy. And then there are some places that are um, specifically designed for those who are below poverty levels, but that middle section is missing, and it's very difficult for people that may be middle class, especially lower middle class, to even be able to get housing in Arlington unless it's housing that you have inherited. And so our branches work in that area specifically, advocating for the missing middle, having various symposiums. And we actually just last month had a housing conference where we trained people from all over the county on ways to advocate and came together with different places that we could all work together on different housing associations, realty groups, and things like that. And so we're very active in terms of housing. And whenever there has been issues within housing, especially the lower end housing, the Arlington branch steps in when people have been treated unjustly and unfairly. We had a situation like that just a few years ago where there was an apartment building that no one would want their son or daughter, grandchildren living in. And those who owned the building would not do the things that were necessary to bring it up to par. And I mean, with rodents and with repairs that needed to be done, where people were without water and without heat for up to 2 years. And so the branch, when we were made aware of that, stepped in, advocated on their behalf. And now many of those people have other suitable housing options. But the problem still lies that it's not always affordable in Arlington. So our fight continues in that area. In the area of education, the Arlington branch has been working hard, especially with diversity, equity, inclusion, which seems to have become bad words in the last few months, but they are good words to us because it is what helps to advance our society and definitely make sure that our children are getting what is equitable. And so we continue to work in there to make sure that the teachers and the educators all throughout the school system and those who are staff are getting paid at the same levels, are being treated in humane ways, and that they have all the resources that they need to be able to adequately teach the children as well. And so we also provide book bags at the beginning of the year. We provide teacher packs for the teachers, and we donate to the schools as well as providing scholarships. Arlington Branch gives over $50,000 a year in scholarships to college students. And we're very proud to be able to do that. We also work very hard in terms of the legal concerns of people within the county. Many of you who keep up with the NAACP may have seen that our county wrote a letter to the Department of Justice asking for intervention because within the last 4 years, we have had 6 persons to die in police custody at the Arlington jail. And so we stand with these families. We ask the necessary questions and demand justice for these families as well. And then we also work with political reform as I'm on this Zoom right now, there is another Zoom that is happening for the Arlington branch right now with all of the candidates for our area, and they're sharing in a bipartisan way or nonpartisan way, sorry. They're sharing their political agendas, and people are able to make well-informed decisions based on the ideology of those persons that are there on the line. So our branch works very hard, and we welcome support of all kinds. We welcome community partnerships as well, and I look forward to sharing ways that congregations can get involved shortly.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for that, Reverend Davis. Um, Jumping back to Dr. Lee, you've kind of sketched out ways in which the NAACP has been active across the state of Virginia. Didn't know if you wanted to add a word or two about more current or recent ways that the statewide conference is involved on racial justice issues, and then we'll jump into this question of how can congregations get involved.
Absolutely. So in concert with what Dr. Davis has shared, the work of the NAACP is done through its committees. And there are a number of committees at the local level, there are at the state level that are mirrored at the local level where, the work in the branches through its committees is done. So you've heard education committee, you've heard political action. There's a health committee. There is an environmental justice committee. There's a labor committee. There are several other committees. Now, in terms of at the state level, you would find us either filing lawsuits or joining lawsuits, i.e., there was a lawsuit filed with the Circuit Court of the City of Richmond against Governor Glenn Youngkin's office for violating the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, specifically related to DEI efforts in the Commonwealth. There's under the Environmental Justice Committee, supported judicial decision to uphold a regional greenhouse gas initiative, emphasizing that only the Virginia General Assembly, not the unilateral opinions of the governor, hold the authority to make significant environmental policy change. Under the umbrella of the faith community engagement to maintain regular worship, prayer, and fellowship among communities, the Virginia NAACP hosts a recurring Worship Around the State program where members worship at different churches throughout the Commonwealth, develop Sankofa Moments, a program initially designed to happen monthly, but it is designed to highlight the history of Black Virginia and or accomplishments of acclaimed Black Virginians. And then to promote regular prayer and spiritual connections, we sponsor a monthly 7-on-7 virtual prayer program that connects members of our faith community monthly for 7 minutes of prayer. We advocate for policies to address housing inequities, combat discriminatory lending practices, and prevent eviction crises that disproportionately harm our communities.
It's a full plate.
Yes. Oh, yes. It's more than a full plate. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few.
Well, speaking of the laborers, then why don't we jump to that? And how is it that congregations are able to engage in this work with the NAACP? I think sometimes I hear from congregations, well, we've done this study, we've been learning, and that's great. Yes, maybe we've made some relationships that are meaningful to us, but how do we get at helping move change in the country? And so is there a way? Is there a way for congregations to connect with you in that way?
Yes, and I'm so glad you asked that question and interjected the statement that you made, because conversations are great. Good communication really is wonderful. But what happens after that? What are we going to do about it? Or what are we actively doing about it? So with that, individuals can become members of the NAACP. There are a number of membership levels, from an annual membership fee to several different life membership categories. There are opportunities for a congregation to be involved when there are calls to action. Um, some of those call to action happen during the General Assembly session, and that information is disseminated out from the state political action or from the state administrator to the local president and secretary. And then there is a call to action where there may be a response. There may be a need to have persons either show up at the General Assembly and speak during a committee or speak virtually for a committee. And then, of course, there are local call to actions. Um, i.e., for example, if the Arlington branch had a call to action and there was a school board meeting or a board of supervisors meeting, and there was a specific or set initiative that they were promoting or urging community interest or community support for, that would come out in that way as well. And then, of course, donations. Freedom is not free. It costs something. It costs all of us something. And so the work of the organization, certainly in this space, you understand as nonprofits that the work that you do, it requires resources, for sustainability and to advance the initiatives that you put forth. Sustaining partnerships in your local area, sustaining partnership with the state conference, are certainly other ways. There are relationships too that we have with other organizations. One of which is the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy, and I have some information that I can share with you about an initiative that they have on voting. Understanding that in our state there's an election every year, and in the faith community nor in our organization can we tell you who to vote for. We can't do that. What we can do and what we are active in doing is promoting and providing voter education, voter information, and voter registration. So in those worship around the state meetings, it's an opportunity for the local branches to get together in a faith community on whatever that faith community day is. The branches are there providing that information, registering people to vote, giving them information about where to vote, and they can come together, the faith community and the local NAACP, and host a candidate forum. So it gives the congregation an opportunity to hear about who they have an opportunity to vote for in their local elections.
Can I ask you one clarifying question? So
Sure.
anyone on this call who wanted to join the NAACP, I've understood as we chatted where you go to join. Like I wouldn't, if I'm a Maryland resident, I wouldn't necessarily join the national organization. Where do I go to join if I want to? And
Yes,
so,
yes. And so
so
the qualifiers for that would be where you live, where you work, or where you worship would determine, the location or the local branch that you would join.
And that's great. I was embarrassed to realize that, it wasn't a surprise. I've known it. I have not been a member of the NAACP, but in our conversations and bringing that opportunity to the forefront led me to take that step. So I'm glad now to be a member, and I've done so in my Maryland branch. So excited about that. They start at $35 and go on from there. We'll have some slides that we're just going to distribute to folks afterwards that have some more information about different membership opportunities for individuals, youth, and organizations. But I wanted to turn it back over to you then, Dr. Davis, about your further reflections on how congregations can connect. And I know you have a slide for that as well, so I can.
Yes, if you could pull it up. So many of these things that I'm going to share, Dr. Lee has already covered. So I will just echo and agree with her on that. But I did want to add to what you asked as well just a minute ago, Pat, about where we join. So you do join your local branch, but by joining your local branch, a part of the dues that you pay also goes to national. So you are a member of NAACP National when you join at the local level. So you will begin to receive all of the communications as well nationally.
Great.
So, let me say this first. I am a preacher. I have been preaching for 28 years and I am on renewal leave. So, I have not preached in my congregation for a few weeks. So, I apologize because I have 7 points tonight that I was going to share with you about ways that congregations can get involved. And so, if you have a prayer time for me, you might want to pray that I just get back into preaching for my congregation so I don't have to do this to anybody else. Number one, let me just say, congregations and faith communities, that Black, white, Latino, multicultural, immigrant communities have always played a vital role in the work of justice. And so today, I think it's most important because we are in this climate of division, disinformation, discrimination, all kinds of things that are happening in our nation and in our world. And I'm not saying that, just politically, just as a fact of what is happening to people all around us. And so it's very important. The mission of the NAACP needs that moral clarity, organizing power, and spiritual courage that faith communities can offer. It is essential that faith communities are a part of this work. So, what are some of the things we could do? Number one, we could educate our congregations. Hosea 4 and 6 says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." So, some of the ways we can educate the congregation is like hosting forums, Bible studies, small groups folks focused on racial justice, voting rights, civil rights history, current social justice issues. There's even a Bible study that Word of the Day and that particular Bible study takes current issues and topics, things that are written about in the New York Times um, and places that with scripture so that we can apply it to our lives and create an action plan for what we'll do from there. You could also partner with the NAACP, bringing in speakers, panelists, and materials for the community, and highlight the NAACP milestones and campaigns during worship services and in church bulletins or faith community bulletins. Number two, join in the NAACP. And Dr. Lee talked about that extensively, so I won't go much further with that other than saying to you that you can join as a member or your organization. Your church can be a part of it as well as a faith partner or member organization. And in the Arlington branch, we have where faith communities also give scholarships or help to fund some of the scholarships that we have for young people. Number three, using the pulpit and the platform that you have to be able to do a few things. One, preach and teach boldly about justice, equity, and the gospel's demand to love your neighbor. And we all remember our neighbor is not just the person who looks like us, it's not just the person who's from the same place that we are. Using our
Mhm.
influence to challenge uh, racism and policies that harm marginalized communities and collaborating with other clergy or faith leaders across racial, denominational, and political lines to model unity in action. Number four, we can advocate for policy change. And so a lot of times people say, well, what can I do? I'm too old, or I don't have the energy to stand in front of the Capitol or in front of the Supreme Court. Everybody is not called to do that, but everybody does have an option in a way that we can advocate. So we can organize letter writing campaigns, phone banks, give public testimony, invite other speakers to speak on urgent policy issues, speaking to our congregation or interfaith events, or even just showing up for rallies, town halls, and school board meetings as faith-based witnesses. Because our kids need that, for our future generations need that. Number five, supporting youth and scholarships. So you could partner with the NAACP Youth and College Division to invest in the next generation of leaders. As we know, some of the schools are not getting as much funding at this point, especially for people of color. And so, as time goes on, we're going to need to invest more and more into young people that are part of the NAACP, donate or help fundraise for those scholarships programs, or offer space for youth leadership training, tutoring, and mentoring programs, which many of the branches have for our kids. Number six, provide resources and space. You could just open your faith community, sanctuary, fellowship halls, whatever you have for community forums, voter registration drives, know your rights training, or community meetings. You'd be surprised how that can help so many other things to happen as a result of that. We had a meeting recently where we had to spend over $4,000 just for the venue that we had. But think
Mm.
about how many people could really benefit from that 4,000 if we are able to put that into voter education, or we are able to put that into scholarships and things like that. So someone opening their building makes a big difference. Also, you could offer financial support through regular donations, love offerings, or grant partnerships, or provide meals, transportation, or printing resources for events or outreach efforts. And number seven, stand in public solidarity. If you join in NAACP led events as a visible presence, that could be with your t shirt, with your congregation name, banner of support, clergy collar, whatever you have. As you do that as a visible presence, it helps to build relationships across racial and cultural lines within the broader faith community. And when we do that, we show unity beyond the lines that are our norm. And so we know that when injustice arises, it gives us a way to speak out together, to pray together, and to act together. So, why does this matter? I'm glad you asked tonight, because we are in a moment of deep political and cultural shifting, one that will define the moral future of this nation. And the NAACP stands on the front line of this battle for justice, dignity, and democracy. And faith communities, better than any other community to do this, because we are faith communities uniquely positioned to shape the conscience of the nation, hold space for healing and reconciliation, and mobilize love into action. Dr. King said, the church must be reminded that it is not the master or the servant of the state, but rather the conscience of the state. And so, friends, I say today, together with faith, courage, and love, we can and we should continue this unfinished work of justice.
I want to thank you so very much, Reverend Dr. Delisha Davis, Reverend Dr. Janetta Lee, for sharing with us tonight about the NAACP and how congregations can be involved. I want to take a couple minutes before we jump into our roundtable peer exchange, if there's a question or a comment or two that folks might have. Reverend Janet Garner Mullins from Charlotte, North Carolina. What's your question, please, or
Yes,
comment?
good afternoon. Thank you both for your time that you're sharing with us, and thank all of those that are part of this program. But are there existing programs and or partnerships between the NAACP and faith-based institutions that churches can immediately get involved in?
So I'll let Dr. Lee speak to that on the state and national level. I can say locally we have a partnership. The what's called the Religious Affairs um, combines organizations as well as faith communities. Many of our branches have religious affairs there. If you don't have it, you can consult the president of that branch, and they will be able to connect you as needed there. Our branch also has a connection with the Interfaith Alliance and Interfaith Network. And so it allows us an opportunity to reach out to people of all different faiths and religions, but at the same time to share the message of social justice.
Thank you. Dr. Lee, any further comments that you would share for that?
On a national level, I actually was just going to the national website because there is a listing of organizations that there are national MOUs with. But to specifically say there are specific religious groups, I cannot respond to that affirmatively yet. I can do some research on it and get back to you. I do know that the national organization does have a national religious affairs chair who does work with the various denominational leaders around the country. There has been, in the time that I've been with the NAACP, a membership drive in one of those denominations. So there definitely is the opportunity and has been partnership in the past. Within the confines of the state, again, and the local community, as Dr. Davis said, there are partnerships and organizations that come alongside and share in space. One of which in Virginia is the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy. They actually have an initiative for the last, I want to say maybe 3 or so years. It's the 100% voting congregation effort.
Great.
I did share this information with them, and the person who supports that effort with the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy is on with us tonight. No, his
Robert
name is Mr.
Lester.
Robert. Yes.
Well, wonderful.
I want to thank everyone for joining us for this Interwoven Congregations Roundtable, and especially our two speakers, Reverend Dr. Delicia Davis and Reverend Dr. Janetta Lee. Just a word about Dr. Davis. She has taken a new pulpit at a new congregation in Northern Virginia, but the email that you see on the screen will still get right to her. We talked during this presentation about joining the NAACP, and there are multiple options. Youth can join as members. Then, so of course can adults. But then we also have the option of having our congregations join as members. How cool would that be if everyone who was a part of this roundtable signed up their congregation and we built further the membership to support this organization that provides such important work for racial justice and healing? You can go to their national website at naacp.org, where they have more resources and information about membership. But remember, we join with our local branch. Many thanks again to all of you for joining us for this roundtable and our speakers. And we look forward to working further with you as together we seek to be agents for racial justice and healing. Thank you.